Hi there, Graham Vincent, violin maker, musician, and
Hello, Thibaut Jaber.
yeah, so it's Tuesday, so it's day 2 of week 3. Been pretty busy actually, got a lot done I'd say. I've taken a few little bits of footage of things as we go, so because stuff is around the place and gluing, just don't want to start waving it around too much, so we'll refer to that as we go. I just realised I haven't put the microphones on.
Yes.
So speak loudly and clearly.
Disappointed people out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry about that, but we'll enunciate clearly as we go, hopefully. But that wasn't just a mistake. So, should we start, as we seem to be getting into the habit of doing so, with comments? Yeah, why not? Absolutely. Ola Johan Palsrud, I guess his name is. Forgive me if pronunciation is completely garbled. Hello from Norway. I think it's very interesting to see different ways to build a violin. My grandfather built violins as a hobby, and I remember that he had a special way to fasten the neck, where he made the neck and the neck block in one, and then fastened it to the back before he glued in the garland one piece at a time, just as you see this maker doing. And I have actually had a quick look at that, and that's exactly what you'd expect.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's sort of. I mean, that was common as a method in Germany, I think, for a while, wasn't it?
And somewhere like around Netherlands or Belgium.
And I've certainly seen one English violin where that was definitely the way it's done.
Yes.
And of course, when you get to things like classical guitars and flamenco guitars, they are often made that way. But flamenco guitars especially, except they normally work from the front.
From the front
upwards, don't they? Yeah. So, I mean, advantages, disadvantages, it certainly makes for a nice, easy neck joint until you want to repair it, of course. You know, and I wouldn't be at all surprised if the reason it's not done is so many makers are also repairers, you know?
Yeah.
And
sure
that would put you off.
What the reason is why it sort of fell out of fashion quite quickly.
Maybe it's something to do with small workshops where you have, you know, different people making necks and making bodies.
Yeah, why not?
Could be that.
Could be a reason.
Yeah. But in terms of, I mean, it's something I've come across, something that's known, something that definitely works, but it's kind of fallen out of favour. I think that's the best way to put it, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not something I'm intending to try myself. I've done guitars like that, and that was it was great, basically. Then got another message from Thomas. It's a surname is H.V. Ehring, so Vering. I don't know how to pronounce that as well. I'm doing really well garbling everyone's sort of names, I'm afraid. Thank you so much for your answers and interesting discussion on moulds. And I've collected several years of corks, both wine and champagne, just so yeah, you'll be fine. But this is the actual sort of bones of this comment. On the topic of purflings, or rather the groove it's glued into, if I understand it correctly, you cut the sides first, inner and outer, and then remove the material on the inside with a special and very thin chisel. That's effectively right. Yeah, you can use just a normal chisel, or most people use a sort of a little hooked chisel, so you kind of pick the waste out. I'm pretty well stocked up on tools, but a purfling cutter is not among them. So I had considered using a scratch stock. I'll simply make a fitting profile on an iron, a bit of old saw blade, but I fear that it might be too crude for this. I think it would be, to be honest. I've used a scratch stock before for making mouldings, putting beads onto traditional doors and planks and all sorts of things like that. But one thing that scratch stocks are absolute rubbish at is cutting across the grain. And of course, about half of the purfling, it like all along here and here, is across the grain. And I think you'll just end up tearing up the outside of the the outside of the edge. So if I were you, rather than going down that route and just making yourself hours and hours of frustration and effort trying to repair what you've done, I would actually invest some of those hours in just making yourself a simple little purfling sort of cutter. It's basically just a cutting gauge,
Yeah.
but instead of it having a square face on the stock, you have a curved one. So almost any design that you can think of which holds a blade parallel to a curved surface will do. I reckon.
Yeah. I mean, we make our own purfling cutters in Brienz, and if you have like access to a lathe and a drill press, then it's actually very simple to do, and you
Yeah.
can make yourself a fantastically high quality tool. And of course, if you don't have access to all that, you can probably make quite a simple device out of wood, probably even. That's probably going to work fine
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, I mean, if I was going to be making one just as a one-off, I'd literally be making something based, not dissimilar to a marking gauge, but with a curved stock, and probably the old-fashioned marking gauge where you used a wedge instead of a threaded sort of thing to hold everything in place. That would do the job, I would think. Yeah. So that's just the comments we've had so far. So Thibaut has been incredibly busy, and it was looking very impressive yesterday, and it's sort of leapt forward again. I mean, bass bar has been one thing today, but that's not all you've done, is it?
Well, I finished the thicknessing of the front. It wasn't quite finished yesterday, so I finished that today. Then I finished, of course, the F-holes, because I had only roughly sawed them out with the saw. So I sort of, at first I scraped the inside of the arching and then finished the cutting of the F-hole, so to make sure that I don't sort of catch the edge of the F-hole with the scraper. So that I get like a nice crisp edge. And then I fitted and glued the base bar. And yes, I hope it will have turned out quite well.
He's done a great job, so I'm sure it'll be fine,
yes.
basically. Yeah.
It is sort of quite a new setup to me, so I am not yet so confident using it, but I'm sure if I use it a few times I would sort of gain quite a lot of confidence.
Seems to do very well now.
I think it's going to be fine.
And my day has been, I mean, I started off by having a quick look at the two violins that I've been bringing up to sort of finishing, and they are, I was wondering whether they would be okay with the last coat of French polish I put on, but in fact I've decided that both of them could do with a little bit more work, so I just cut that back gently with some pumice, and I have pumice and linseed oil, so they've been in the UV cabinet on and off during the day, and tomorrow I will just give them a little French polish, and then I think they'll be ready for fitting up. Apart from that, the violin I've started this last week is coming on. I've just been doing some rough shaping on the front and the back. That's done. I did the front pretty much by hand. Well, apart from cutting the edge down to thickness, which I did on that machine I showed you before, I just went straight in with thumb plane and then scraper on the front, and on the back I tried the same thing, but this is an incredibly hard bit of maple, so I actually sort of resorted to using a burr cutter in my Dremel to freehand the arching. So I probably will carry on and use that for the rough shaping, and then move over to scrapers, because this, A, it's really hard, and B, it seems incredibly susceptible to tear out, so I'm going to be a little bit careful on that. But that's where that one is at the moment. I'm very pleased with it. It's very strange working with so much spare, because it's going to be glued together before the edge work's done, So I'm kind of having trouble getting my head round where the arching sits in all of this, but so far so good. We'll see. Well, I'll let you know if it was a total disaster or not. Probably in about 2 days' time, I would have thought. Yeah, so that's where that is. Plan for tomorrow for me is to mark out roughly where to put the channel in, put that in, finesse the arching, front and back, and possibly, if I have time, sort of start thicknessing front and back. Oh, and as I said, actually French polish those 2 violins, and so they're moving forward nicely. Oh, the other thing I did is I fixed the neck on a fiddle I'm repairing, which arrived with its neck off. So I've put that on, and I'll put the fingerboard onto that tomorrow. So I think we've both been pretty busy, haven't we?
Yeah, we have been.
Then, one last big thing is my old fiddle, which Thibaut has been sort of using as because I've been doing the arching. I've actually pinched the one the one jig for holding the thing, so that's kind of put a little bit of a stop on what Thibaut could do this late afternoon. So we've just got my old violin back out again, and Thibaut's working on the spiral bushings.
Yes.
So can I ask a few questions?
Yes, of course.
Because I know what it's like to not know much about spiral bushings. Okay.
Yeah, I guess that's a good plan.
Yeah. What's the ideal thickness that they would be when everything's working?
What do you mean, like the finished thickness?
What's the ideal finished thickness of your spiral bushing when you've got everything set up?
Everything glued in.
Everything glued in and the pegs working.
Well, I guess it depends on what you need. Sort of how much smaller the hole needs to become. You can
Is
sort
there
of
a minimum?
Well, yes, of course, you sort of have to have like a reasonable amount of wood. So if you only have like maybe 1/10 of a millimeter, then it's probably going to sort of wear the wood away, or sort of maybe crumble it away.
But you would consider like 1 turn of shaving?
Yeah, so like 1 turn, I would probably sort of try to use a shaving of around sort of 0.3 millimeters thickness. So I guess that would be sort of the minimum to start with. And then of course the 0.3, you're still gonna be using the reamer to sort of clean up and get like the shape really perfect, because there is still quite a bit of give in those shavings when you glue them, so you can still get sort of things not quite aligning. So you do need to clean it up with the reamer afterwards.
If you have a lot to build up and you need many turns, we were discussing earlier that makes it difficult, because you've got to sort of unwind the shavings after you put them in. Would you then build that up with several goes?
Never did that so far, but actually, why not? I mean, maybe one reason why not might be using Titebond or something for gluing it, because it obviously doesn't stick on itself very well.
Yeah.
And with a thin shaving, you sort of have got the Titebond glue sort of permeating through the whole shaving, so it might not stick so well anymore for the next layer. But if you do them traditionally with hide glue, then of course there is no reason why not. However, I have never done it with hot hide glue before, because that is very, very stressful
I can imagine.
to do.
And Thibaut said something whilst we were discussing this the other day, which it was like the penny dropped for me, and that is, of course, you have to put the shavings in so that when you're using the reamer, it's cutting away from the end, because if you put it in the wrong way, and you will pick up the end, and you'll just ruin the whole thing, basically. So you've got to consider when you're putting the bushing in, that you get it in the direction, so the inner end is basically pointing in the direction of travel rather than against the direction of travel.
Yeah. exactly.
Because once you said that, I kind of thought, yeah, obviously, but I
Yeah.
hadn't thought of it.
Yeah. And that then also the other way around means that when you try to unwind the shaving in the peg hole, you sort of have to twist the peg, because you're using like the peg to push it in, and then you twist it the opposite way you would if you were tuning
Yeah,
or like if you were trying to loosen a string,
yeah,
you're turning, and then that sort of makes the other end of the shaving catch the peg box, and then it sort of stops it from just slipping
Right.
and turning in the hole,
Got it.
and starts to make it unwind slightly.
yeah.
The main thing. Yeah. 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 What else is there to say?
The other thing, in all honesty, the reamer that I've got is getting on in years, so it's not the sharpest. So Thibaut did mention that it might cause a few little issues with.
We're gonna see
it,
how well it works out.
Yeah.
Of course,
We
with
might have to have a
having
rethink.
like a thin shaving, and of course having been planed off from the stock, the piece of wood, it has got some slight, like obviously the little bit of crackly bits. So it tends to be like fairly brittle. So I hope that it won't cause any problems. However, I have noticed I have already like cut back the two first bushings I glued in, and I must say it is all like soaked up with Titebond glue. And,
Well, they look beautiful, to be honest.
and
They
it sort
look-
of
yeah.
almost like hardens and stabilizes
Yeah. Looks
the
really
wood.
good.
So I think that will help with
Yeah,
the reamer not sort of breaking anything.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, and I think we'll leave it there, shall we?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so.
We'll leave it there, and probably do another one of these tomorrow, all being well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's it. Signing off. Look after yourselves. Cheers, folks. Bye.
Bye.